started with screaming. Not hers. Theirs. Because she wouldn't scream. Not even as the searing rods punched through her ribs, not even when the surgeon-class AI flayed the nerves along her spine with cold, clinical precision. The screams came from the Varnari scientists, from the guards, from the observers behind the reinforced glass, because they didn't understand. They thought they had a prisoner. But what they had was a mistake. Her name was Ilara Miles, Sergeant, Terran Recon, 1st Cohort, 7th Division, KIA, 0732 Galactic Standard, official cause of death, organ failure from systemic trauma. Unofficially, she died with her eyes open, staring right at them, unblinking, unforgiving, and worse than that, she smiled. No one smiled on Table 9. No one survived the Varnari dissectum labs, let alone smiled. But Ilara did. Because humans aren't like the others. We don't crack when broken. We bend, we bleed, and then we come back. She had been missing for 9 days, captured on Aurealis Prime after a failed evac during the siege. The rest of her unit, gone, incinerated in a kinetic barrage. Ilara, dragged into the dark, chained to a cold metal slab under a triple-sealed biodome 2 kilometers beneath the surface. She wasn't supposed to live this long. They made sure of it, but she did. She clung to life like it owed her something, like she refused to let them have the last word. And the Varnari noticed. They tried harder, cut deeper, every day, until day 10, when she stopped moving, stopped breathing, flatline, and the alien lead scientist, a bloated, spine-ringed creature named Dr. Valnay, clicked his mandibles in delight. Human resilience, overrated. They logged her death at 0729, disposal scheduled for 0800, autopsy in progress by 0731, but at 0756, the alarms triggered. Sector 9, lockdown, emergency power routing, 1 containment breach. She got up. No heartbeat. No neural activity logged. Just sudden motion, a twitch, a jerk of the hand, then both arms. Then her eyes opened, but something was different. They weren't her eyes anymore. They were colder, sharper, empty, but burning, a void, wrapped in fury. She sat up on the table, the same one where they shattered her ribs, where they skinned her fingertips down to the bone. She moved like her body wasn't hers. And the first thing she did? She ripped the restraints out of the steel frame. With fingers that had no muscle left, with wrists still leaking blackened blood, she stood, staggered, then charged the observation glass. Dr. Valnay didn't make it out. Neither did the 2 guards, or the intern, or the surgeon bot. The glass didn't break. She punched through it anyway. 1 blow, not 2, 1. A sickening crack as reinforced alien material buckled like cheap plastic. What walked through the breach wasn't Ilara anymore. It wore her face. It walked like her. But it moved like something else. Something that came back. And nothing could stop it. She tore through level 9 in 4 minutes. Unarmed. Ripping spinal cords from their sockets. Disemboweling guards with surgical wire. Using her own broken rib as a weapon. Nothing about it was human. Except for the rage. Except for the precision. She remembered every face, every pain, every scream she didn't give them. And now? They screamed for her. The AI core tried to lock her down, gas the sector, shut the doors, seal the exits. Didn't matter. She wasn't inside anymore. She was beneath it. Moving through vents, through cable runs, through void gaps only rats used. Security footage caught only glimpses. A blood-slick silhouette sliding between shadows, eyes glowing with something not yet understood. Vengeance? Possession? Something worse? At 0817, she reached the surface. Naked, burned, alive. She stood on the landing pad, wind whipping her matted hair around her face. And when the guard captain pointed a plasma rifle at her skull, she smiled again. That was when the comm towers fried. Every screen, Every drone, every surveillance relay, gone, offline. Blacked out in a single, synchronized EMP burst, triggered from inside her body. They didn't know how. They didn't want to know. Because the next minute, she disappeared. Just gone. No shuttle taken. No visual confirmation of departure. 1 second there. The next, gone. And all that was left was the blood. And the silence. But it didn't stay quiet for long. Because by 0911 Galactic Standard, the Varnari High Command received a transmission. Short. Encrypted. Terran dialect. Old Earth tongue. A single voice. Heron 5 words. This isn't over. Not yet. 2 hours later, the first ship exploded. Not from orbit. Not from enemy fire. From inside. From a single locked medical bay in Subdeck C, where there shouldn't have been anything left alive. They found what was left of the crew. Scattered. Not killed, but destroyed. One had his throat crushed by his own exosuit. Another, still screaming when they opened the hatch, arms torn off, cauterized with surgical precision. The captain, no trace, just his hand. Still gripping a flare gun, still lit. That was the moment Varnari Command understood. This wasn't a rescue mission. This wasn't an escape. This was a return. Ilara Miles was back, and she was hunting. She wasn't fully alive, not anymore. Vital scans where they caught her showed no standard neural rhythms, no blood pressure, no respiratory cycles. But she moved. Fast, efficient. Like every step was calculated 10 steps ahead. Like she didn't care about pain or breath or bleeding. Because she didn't need to. Because something brought her back. Something old. Something buried in her bones. Something human. But deeper than evolution. Adaptive hypersymbiosis, whispered one Varnari researcher, moments before he was impaled on his own clipboard. An ancient Earth fallback system. Experimental, prehistoric. A last resort genetic code left dormant in the Terran genome. We called it Protocol A27. You don't activate it. It activates you when everything else is gone. When there's nothing left but death and the will to undo it. Most of us never reach that place. Ilara did. They pushed her past every limit, shattered her identity, shredded her biology, but something held on. Something that said, N-O period. And now they were learning what that meant. It started with whispers, stories, footage no one could verify, commanders going dark, ships found with no crew but every door welded shut from the inside. They said she'd been seen walking the hull of a destroyer, without a suit, ripping open the airlocks with her bare hands. They said she moved faster than targeting sensors, killed before you knew she was there. They said she was talking to something, not to herself, to a voice, a language no one recognized. Not Earth, not Varnari, not machine, but something beneath language, a hum, a rhythm, like the heartbeat of a dead star. And as her trail of devastation grew, so did the fear. Commanders abandoned posts, entire fleets rerouted. Mercenary warlords refused Varnari credits. And still, Ilara came. No backup, no weapons, just her, and the fire she brought with her. They tried to set a trap. Sector 12, 6 cruisers, 1 bait transport, rigged with neural dampeners, gas antimatter charges, all surrounding one old shuttle, her old recon ship, recovered from Aurealis Prime and rigged with every sensor possible. They thought she'd come for it. They were right, but not how they expected. She didn't go to the shuttle. She came from it. She was already there, inside, waiting. One cruiser went black at 0342, no warning. By 3:43, it exploded. At 3:45 a.m., the next ship fired wildly into the dark. At 3:46, its own weapons turned inward. At 3:47, screaming stopped. When the flagship tried to jump away, its core overloaded. The Admiral made one last transmission. She's not human anymore. And then static. Nothing left but silence and drifting wreckage. Alara left one thing behind. On the command deck, carved into the metal with a shard of bone. 5 words, same as before. But now, one more added. This isn't over, not yet, but it soon will be. And then the broadcasts began, intercepted across 5 systems. Her voice, low, cold, unbroken, not recorded. Live. You taught me how to die. Now let me show you how I learned to live. You thought pain would break me. It forged me. I was your experiment. But now, I'm your consequence. And then, nothing. She cut the feed, just before the planet she was on. Vanished in a white flash of light. Varnari High Command lost an entire moon colony in seconds. No survivors. The reports couldn't explain it. The tech didn't match any known Terran weapons. Just a core signature. Human. But wrong. Older. Primordial. It matched her DNA. But something else too. Something layered underneath. A second structure, viral, predatory, deliberate, like something was guiding her, or learning through her. But if Alara knew, she didn't care. Because she was moving again, and her next stop was the homeworld. There were no speeches, no warnings, no declarations of war, just a shadow in the clouds and death beneath it. At 0410 GST, Alara entered Varnari space. No fleet, no escort, no visible propulsion, just her silhouette, drifting across the stars on nothing but will. Her pulse registered in every sensor tower. Gravitational scans warped around her. Dark matter moved when she passed. She wasn't traveling, she was consuming. Space folded for her. Reality bent, not because she demanded it, but because it knew her, feared her. The Varnari homeworld, Calvareth Prime, was locked under planetary defense code. No ship in, no signal out. But that didn't stop her. At 0423, a single atmospheric ripple was detected, a thin tear, like lightning without sound. She appeared 12 kilometers above the Capitol dome, falling, slowly, arms at her sides, eyes closed, like she was asleep. They fired everything, kinetic batteries, anti-psi beams, orbital disruptors. None of it touched her. Every shot missed, bent in air, deflected by forces too fast to measure. One burst came close, but it froze mid-air, then reversed, tearing through the tower that fired it. She landed in the Civic Plaza, one knee down, one fist to the ground. The quake took out 3 blocks, thousands crushed in the shockwave. And then, silence. The air itself held its breath. Alara stood, body wrapped in soot and blood, hair slicked against her skull, barefoot on broken glass. She walked straight toward the Hall of Sovereigns. Every Varnari noble was inside, watching, cowering, screaming orders no one could follow. The Chancellor tried to negotiate. His voice, trembling, rang through the loudspeakers. Please, we didn't know, we didn't understand. It was science. We wanted to study human potential. Alara didn't answer. She just walked through the defense barrier, not around, through, skin blistering, eyes burning white hot. Every molecule that touched her vaporized, and when she reached the steps, she stopped, looked up, then spoke. You studied pain. Now know it. She lifted her hand. Nothing in it, but the sky cracked, literally. A black fracture split the atmosphere, like glass under pressure. From it came a sound, not a voice, not a scream, but something ancient, mechanical, alive. It wasn't her voice anymore, it was the other, the thing inside her, awakened, awake. Protocol, a 27, fully engaged. A pulse shattered the clouds, an EMP shockwave so wide it shorted out orbiting moons. Defense satellites dropped from the sky, power grids exploded, nobles fell to their knees, bleeding from the nose, ears, eyes. The planet screamed. And then she moved, fast, blurred, like a thought given form. By the time the first guards reacted, they were already dead. She was in the main hall, surrounded, blades, shields, plasma spears, none of it mattered. She tore through them like air, every motion efficient, tactical, inhuman. She remembered every cut they gave her, and gave it back tenfold. She broke bone with surgical strikes, blinded with broken helmets, impaled two nobles with a single sharpened rib from a corpse. Then she reached the high seat, the chancellor, still breathing, barely, begging. "What are you?" She knelt, face close, eyes empty, and whispered, "I'm what you made." Then, she placed her hand on his chest. Just one hand, no blade, no weapon. His body, folded, caved in on itself, turned inside out with a sound no language could describe, and then dissolved into dust. No one else in the chamber moved. They couldn't. Spines shattered, brains boiled, minds fractured just being near her. One Varnari, eyes wide, blood dripping from every pore, muttered a final breath. "We killed her." And she brought something back with her. And then he exploded. Across the galaxy, the feed went out. All Varnari systems went dark. Communication relay stations across 3 quadrants suddenly flatlined. It was her. Every screen, every signal, every emergency frequency, broadcasting her face. Not angry, not broken, just calm, dead calm. And her voice, a whisper across the stars. "You wanted to see what humans become when we're pushed past the edge. This is it. This is what waits at the end of pain. This is our evolution." Then she closed her eyes, and the transmission ended. But the damage was done. Varnari command fractured. Colonies surrendered without a fight. Entire sectors went silent, not from death, but from refusal. They would not fight her. They would not face that. Not again. The galaxy turned quiet, not in peace, but in fear, because Alara wasn't chasing them anymore. She was changing, becoming something else, something worse than vengeance, something bigger. And then came the final message. Not to the Varnari. To us, to Earth, to the ones who buried her, who wrote her off, who never came. This isn't over. Not for me. Not for you. I died for your silence. Now I need to know if you remember how to scream. 6 days later, the first Terran warship burned, not from enemy fire, not from sabotage, from within. Black box audio captured only one phrase, whispered in a quiet human voice. "I remember you." Then static, then flame. Earth's High Council convened emergency war protocols. Not against an alien empire, not against invaders, against one of their own. Alara Miles. Human, soldier, fallen, forgotten. And now, something else. But there was a problem. A secret buried years ago. Too deep for records. Too classified for memory. Protocol A-27 wasn't just an accident. It was a design, one made by Earth itself. Back in the First Galactic War, when Terran colonies were falling, scientists looked into our genome. They found something old, something no one remembered putting there, a defense switch, a failsafe, not meant to save lives, meant to avenge them. When death becomes meaningless, when suffering exceeds what a soul can bear, it wakes up. And what it creates isn't entirely human, not anymore. Alara wasn't the first, but she was the last, the final prototype, and the only one who came back. They sent peace envoys. She didn't kill them, she didn't speak, she just stood there, watching, measuring, waiting, then turned and walked away. Not back to war, not to destruction, but toward the void, toward the unknown regions, toward something Earth had forgotten existed. The place where Protocol A-27 originated. Not from DNA, not from evolution, but from something deeper, older than Earth, older than stars, something humans were never meant to touch, but did. Something that saw us and smiled They say Alara stands now at the edge of a black star, not orbiting, standing, her body fractured, flickering between forms, bones that shimmer like glass, eyes glowing with forgotten alphabets, hair that ripples in slow-motion gravity. She isn't alone. There are others now, following her, drawn to her, not people, not machines, not quite alive. Things that hum in frequency, that rewrite the space around them, that speak in dream echoes and blood, and they all look to her as their anchor, their voice, their mother. Earth finally sent one last ship, not to fight, to ask, to beg. A captain old enough to remember her name. He stood before her, trembling. Why did you come back? Why all of this? She turned her gaze on him, not angry, not cruel, just tired, and said, "Because you left me. Because when I screamed, no one answered. Because I loved this world, and it watched me die." Then she reached out and touched his forehead, not with rage, not with violence, but with memory. And he saw it. Everything. The cold tables, the screaming needles, the alien laughter, her skin being flayed, her bones crushed, her mind torn open, and the spark that refused to go out, the fire that came after, the voice that whispered, "I will not break," the silence that became power, the death that became a weapon. When the captain awoke, he wept and told the council, "She didn't return to destroy us. She returned so we could remember what we did, who we are, what we're becoming." That's the last confirmed contact. Alara Miles hasn't been seen since. Only the aftermath remains. Systems that go quiet, empires that surrender to ghosts, ships that vanish into dark corridors of space, all marked by the same phrase, burned into hulls, etched in bone, whispered by dying stars. Remember Alara. Because she didn't just come back from death. She became its meaning. She isn't vengeance. She isn't justice. She is the final answer to pain. The last breath of a forgotten soldier who died alone and rose as a god.